Thank you, sir, and good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. A lot of effort went into making sure that the content for this event was what you needed to be successful when you walk away from this conference. If you were at the reception last night, you heard me joke about the IAEOZ summit and what that really means and how intentional Mr. Moore was in thinking of this title for this summit: innovation, critical, agriculture, critical, energy, critical. Opportunity zones is obviously from our previous administration, but continues to be important in terms of where we place the resources and the solution. So I am just delighted and honored to be here today. We had a really tight schedule, and we still do. And I typically don't write my remarks, but this time I did in order to try to stay on track. Um, but again, thank you for being here. We're going to do something to adjust for the time a little bit. Um, after I give my remarks, we were scheduled to have a break. There are some refreshments being set up in the back of the room. There's booths here. So if you would keep your networking to this room, it will help us stay on schedule. So I'm a little bit of a stickler, but so thank you so very much. And thank you, Ron, for your remarks today. If you've not gone to the website, make sure that you bookmark that small business website because a lot of information is there, a lot of access to the team. You can find how to connect with Tamara and Ron there and their team on their website. So I'm going to jump into my remarks today. So forgive me for reading my remarks and not knowing them from heart. But again, I wanted to say thank you for being here today. Um, I have served for nearly 3 decades in government contracting. I've been with the federal government for a very long time, and most of that time has been in the contracting arena. And although I'm not a contracting officer, so I don't have a contract to give you, I'm a contracting officer representative level 2, which means I had to learn a lot about contracting. So if you are looking to be a government contractor, know that understanding how the government does contracting is essential to you. And there are resources to help you understand that. Hence, for the Louisiana Baton Rouge Center, the MBDA Federal Procurement Center, we have the SBA and the Small Business Development Centers, the Apex Accelerators. There are so many resources so that you can get the assistance in pursuing these contracts. So while it is not the easiest nut to crack, it certainly has a pathway to success if you follow it and you tap into the resources. Louisiana is rich with resources, rich with knowledge, rich with people like Senior Cravens here, who we talked last night about what's happening in Louisiana. And what was reiterated is that businesses still need to be stood up. Businesses still need support. I was speaking with the Uber driver. He said, folks don't have spare money, folks don't have spare time. So we're still in a state where folks have a lot of needs, but I'm here to tell you there are a lot of resources being put into our community during this administration. And I'm really delighted to be able to be one of the advocates to come out and talk about what those resources are. I'm not gonna do a whole lot of thanks because I'll start sounding like I'm taking attendance here today. Um, and that was not my intent. But I do have to again thank Keith Moore for his vision, our partners at the Department of Energy, the Department of Transportation, USDA, for coming out and making sure that their program offices are represented. When I tell you we're talking about trillions of dollars, we are literally talking about trillions of dollars. So don't miss this moment. Don't miss the opportunity to take this information, translate it into opportunity. Data equals dollars, people. So if you understand the data, you can follow the dollars. I love what you said, follow the money, sir. I think you stole that from me, but I'm gonna go ahead and let you slide on that. But I'm going to jump right into these slides. Again, my name is Angela Washington. I'm a senior business development specialist at the U.S. Department of Commerce, Minority Business Development Agency, Office of Business Development. I could have given you the acronyms, but I spared you. I'm delighted to serve under the first ever Undersecretary, Mr. Donald Cravens Jr., who has done a phenomenal job in transforming our agency to make sure that we're making the investments in the places that you all really need them. So next slide. I'm going to go really quickly, guys, starting with our vision: create an equitable business ecosystem to unlock America's economic potential. That's you all. Everyone here represents the economic potential of this administration. Whether you're a business, whether you're an advocate, you are a part of this windfall, and we need everyone in place. Our mission at MBDA: we are the only federal government agency solely dedicated to the growth and global competitiveness of minority firms. What does that mean? Simply, we are the ones who are here dedicated to making sure that minority businesses are growing, that you are a part of mainstream economy, that you're not just small, that you go from small to medium to large, and endless possibilities from there. Next slide. You've heard us talk about the MBDA becoming permanent, which gave us our first ever undersecretary. It also gave us some authorities and some new monies to expand our programming. I won't go into all of the deep details because you'll learn more about MBDA over time during this week. But one of the incredible things that President Biden did was made MBDA a permanent agency. For about 50 years, MBDA existed on something we call an executive order. And if you know anything about Washington, D.C., executive orders sometimes just open and close a street, right? And so we needed to exist by something more permanent, something more solid. And so hence come the MBDA Act, which made us a permanent agency. And people fought for this for at least 50 years. And this is work that so many of us contributed to, but it's important that we leverage this moment in time to take advantage of what this investment means. Next slide. And I'll talk a little bit more about what these investments look like. Now, these are my numbers. If you go back and do some calculation, they may vary here and there. But as I've been tracking the most significant investments coming down the federal government, you've seen the bipartisan infrastructure law. We're going to have representatives here from the Department of Transportation to talk about the $1.2 billion investment that's impacting every community. You heard Ron talk about the EV rollout, where the Department of Transportation got funding to make sure that electric vehicle charging stations can be in every community. I came here, funny story, I was trying to get a rental car. Why? Because I wanted to be able to ride around community and just check out Louisiana. And I couldn't get a rental car. They said you all had a game or something here this weekend, and it took all the cars. And they had me thinking that, oh, we might can get you this electric vehicle. And I was apprehensive. I was like, do I really want to deal with that? I don't know. Where's the stations? And I started talking to the people inside of the rental car location, and I asked about the EV charging stations and where were they, and the information was just all over the place, and it just let me know that our community wasn't informed. Our community is not informed, and so a part of why we're here today is to make sure that you are informed, so that you do know where the money is, so that you do know where the resources are. We want to change that narrative. This is a lot of funding to not know where it's going. This is a lot of funding that was historic, that was intended for your community. So it's important that you know about those opportunities that are coming down. So be connected with the local Department of Transportation. Make sure that you're following what these when you hear the administration come on TV and talk about these investments, make sure you know what they are and what they mean to your community. A couple others that were very important, which was the American Rescue Plan. I don't know if you've heard about tech hubs. That was another major investment that came across the country to make sure that you all had resources in your community. I implore you to take a picture of this slide, go back and Google search exactly what these are. Another important one is the Inflation Reduction Act. It was authored by the Department of Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, and it is going to make ways for how minority businesses can leverage this funding to support your businesses and continue to scale and sustain during these very turbulent times. Next slide. What is the funding meant to MBDA? And this is, again, I'm just giving you a breadth of some of the type of funding that's coming down. At MBDA, because of our undersecretary, we thought it prudent to follow the administration and make sure that we were making the same type of investments. So rural communities, we wanted to roll out business centers around the country. We have already an expansive network of MBDA business centers around the country. I've reduced the slide so that we can have time to really talk about the summit, but we have about 88 equities across the country, so that if you need business assistance, you can go into one of those technical assistance centers and get the type of support you need. These particular business centers are specifically put in rural communities to make sure that we're covering as much as the country as we can. MSI, we gave money to 6 minority servant institutions to develop entrepreneurship content. We know that training becomes essential. I heard a small business tell me that they spent $2,000 to get government procurement training. $2,000. I don't know about you, but $2,000 is a lot of money to receive training. So there are technical assistance providers, but there's also assistance that you can get from universities like at Southern, where we have a business center program. So it's essential to figure out where those resources are in your particular respective communities. We had a procurement supplement where we had folks helping to understand how to access the infrastructure funds. And we also have a access to capital program to help you get the capital that you need. I would go into those things pretty deeply, but as you can hear, I'm trying to quickly get through the slides because I want to, one, get us back on schedule and make sure that you can have a snack. But two, there is a very, very important panel coming up following mine today, and I want to make sure that folks have an adequate time to get through that presentation. Next slide. I talked about the funding that MBDA had. On the panel, you will hear we have what has been coined as the Capital Readiness Program. It's a program where MBDA received $100 million from the Department of Treasury to make sure that we can put additional technical assistance programs in communities for to help startups in the early stages of business, to make sure that you're able to adequately launch your products and services. I know that I've reiterated the need for technical assistance, but please don't underestimate the incredible value of going into a facility, taking your idea, and having someone walk you from ideation to market. It's really critical support. It can be very costly to do that. Accountants, consulting hours, getting legal advice. These are very, very critical services that we have found to be critical in helping businesses grow and sustain. So I'll have the website up there, but we wanted these programs, these new program centers, to have the element of an incubator, an accelerator. So somewhere that you really can go and dig deep down into your ideas to bring them to life. Next slide. The 3 pillars of the program is capital, networks, and capacity. I won't belabor the topic. I think we all understand that. But if you look under bullet 1, government capital programs is a very essential place of getting funding. Many folks don't realize, you know, I've been in government for, again, like I said, nearly 30 years. And the one thing that I've continued to have to clarify is government grants and contracts. And folks always believe that the government is walking around with these grants to start your business, grants to do this, and the funding just really does not work like that. Typically, when you have funding to start your business, it will come at the state and local level. The federal government provides funding to organizations to support businesses on the ground, which is why the technical assistance network becomes so important. So it's very important to understand that these funding this program will not only help you to navigate contract, but relevant grant opportunities. Relevant grant opportunities. So there's funding in grants, but you have to understand what that means and how to navigate them. There's contracts. The government is the largest purchaser of services and goods in the nation. probably in the world. I've actually heard in the world, and I'm not going to say second to what I've heard. Well, I'll go ahead and say it today. I've heard only second to the Chinese military. That outside of the Chinese military, the federal government is the largest spender in the world. So that means they buy everything. So if you're trying to figure out how and where there's some resources, I didn't put them into this deck today, but I will do you the favor. If you've never gone to sam.gov, it is essential that you go to sam.gov to begin the registration process, to become a contractor, to do the research on where the opportunities are. So if I get into that, we'll be in class. So I was only asked to give remarks, so I won't start the class today. But if you want to come to class, catch me in the hallway. I got you. I'm on my last two slides. I'm going to close out. If you can take me to my last slide. MBDA then and now. This slide is usually at the front of this deck, but I chose to put it at the end because I wanted to end on a very, very important note, and which is why we do this. If you look at in 1969, MBDA was created by Richard Nixon during a Republican administration. MBDA has maintained to stay in existence, even with an executive order, through that period of time. In 1979, Jimmy Carter changed our name from OMBI to MBDA. And in 2021, we were made permanent. But look at the numbers in terms of the size of the firms back when. Less than 500,000 firms. In 1969, 322,000 firms. Today, employer firms. Today, that looks more like 1 million firms. That talks about the significant work that has been done. But as great as this number looks, there is so much more work to be done. If you will allow me, I had to close out my presentation, I have a book that I want to reference. I just want to read a quick excerpt. So if you would give me moderator privilege and let me go over here and get this book. So all my legal people at the Department of Commerce, I'm not endorsing this book, but I am reading this book. And I would like for folks to understand why I'm reading this book. My colleague my former colleague is going to be on tomorrow from VentureWell. And she asked me to read this book, and it's called Know Your Price, Valuing Black Lives and Property in America's Black Cities. And I want to just read a quick piece from the excerpt. It says, the deliberative devaluation of Blacks in their communities has had very real, far-reaching, and negative economic and social effects. I'm going to skip down a little bit to the solution. But there is nothing wrong with Black people that ending racism couldn't solve. We haven't known how much the country will gain by properly valuing homes and businesses, family structures, voters, and school districts in Black neighborhoods. And we need to know. And we need to know. So for me today, where we come from and where we're going is so essential. It is germane that you understand this historic investment. I'm going to read in closing Executive Order 13985. The name of my presentation was The State of Minority Affairs in the Era of Executive Order 13985. I saved it for the end for a very essential reason. I'm going to read it to you exactly so that you know what it is. Executive Order 13985 is an executive order that President Biden signed on his first day in office. And it's to advance racial equity and support for underserved communities through the federal government, which charged the federal government with advancing equity for all, including communities that have been long underserved, and addressing systemic racism in our nation's policies and programs. That is intentional. I have been in government, as I said, for nearly 30 years, and this is absolutely the first time I've ever seen this type of legislation come down. So it is up to us to take advantage of that, to understand how it's materializing, and make sure that we and our communities are a part of it. So I implore you to continue to follow Executive Order 13985 and understand exactly what it means to you and your communities. Thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to speak before you today. I'm certainly not an economist, but I can tell you that this is an opportunity, as I said, the most historic in our lifetime, and it may never come again. So while we're here, network, ask questions, we'll be around. And again, I'm just delighted. I want to say thank you to everybody again for being here. Thank you to the folks online for being in the room. I asked my mom to get online. She has, in all my years of being in government, I don't think I've ever invited her to hear me speak. And Mr. Craven, sir, I have seen how our leader has made sure that his family has been engaged and incorporated in what he's done, and it inspired me. So today I had my family join me online today. So I want to thank them. I have my family and friends in Nigeria. They also are online today. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you all across the country for being a part of this session. It is going to be a phenomenal day. I advise you to stay here from until I tell you to leave. Thank you.